mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it alive.
It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. And I'm here with Jim Saliba. He's an author and an executive leadership coach. And what we're going to be unpacking this time around is the triple E structure of leadership. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here today.
So, what is the triple E structure of leadership?
It is basically part of my 6-step leadership challenge. I actually wrote a book about it a couple of years ago, and it is to help guide leaders through the changes and the chaos that happens so that they can grow. I think that adaptability is one of the biggest things that companies are looking for in their leaders now, that things are constantly changing. And the triple E structure was built around that concept to make that happen for leaders.
Okay, all right. Let's get right into it. What is it?
What is it? Okay. Well, if we take my 6-step process, we divide it into 3 parts. The first
Okay.
part is kind of looking at yourself. This is the first 2 steps. Introspection is looking at yourself. What's working for you? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? The second step is about how do I connect to the world around me, my company, my life, my family, because all this matters. And this is the first E. This is about emerging, picking your head up, getting out of the weeds of the day-to-day that leaders get themselves stuck in that they can't see past. The second
No,
E.
hold up. Before you go on, it's interesting that you use the word weed.
Yes.
Why? Because you could have used any other. Why weed?
Down in the weeds, kind of is an expression about being so stuck in the details, down in the lowest level that we can't see what's going on.
Is it given sometimes that given the structure of the organization, given the structure of the organization, sometimes some people can't help being stuck there. How do you then go, as they would say, go against the grain then?
Well, there's that, but here's something else to consider. What I often see within organizations that our people are promoted based on their technical skills. For example, in my world of software, I'm a good coder. I can write and I can program. So we make you a tech lead to help other people with the same thing. And that usually works. Some time goes by, we make that person a manager. We never taught them to be a manager. Being a manager is a totally different skill than coding, but we made you a manager. So what do we do? What do you do? What happens a lot is you're going to say, well, I know how you should act. I know how you should do things because they made me here, so you should do it the exact same way I do. There becomes the birth of micromanaging for that manager. Then a couple years go by and we give them another promotion. And now they're a director and they're leading managers and they're trying to do the same thing. And they actually get stuck into doing versus leading. And they can't get past that. And they're micromanaging and they become overwhelmed. I can't ask my team to do it because they're so busy, so I have to take it on myself. Not because we can't do it, but we haven't been taught and given those right skills. So we have to get out of the weeds of the day-to-day, pick our heads up and start looking down the future a little bit and helping the team grow, because I don't scale. I'm only one person.
So I'd interrupted you because you said emerge. What was the other one?
So the second one is
Mm-hmm.
now elevate, get even higher, look at the big picture.
Okay.
Often, I find that many leaders, when I ask them about their vision, they'll tell me the company's vision, where the company wants to go,
Mhm.
but they don't have a vision for themselves or their team. And then people start to wonder, how do I fit into the whole company? They can't put this together. So, getting higher to look at the big picture,
Mhm.
what I call elevate yourself, elevating, is to get a real vision. And I'm not talking about that two-line thing that a company puts on their website
Mhm.
that can
Mhm.
fit 50 other companies. I'm talking about a vision story. What does your life look like 1 year from now, 2 years from now? How does your team work? How does your company work? What does that vision look like? That becomes your story. And now we want to create a strategy for that story to happen. And I have a whole framework for building
Okay.
that strategy, which is in the 6 steps, which is called the LEAD framework, LEAD.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll put a pin in that one because we'll go to the last E first, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Go
we'll come
back.
back to whatever
Okay.
parts we want. The last E is now to take it and excel. We have to make that happen. A new insight and a vision is nothing but a fantasy unless you bring it to execution and make it happen and realize it. And that's what the last E is about, is taking it and not only making it happen once, but over and over and over again. Because if it only happens once, what good is it?
How easy is that to accomplish though, without literally becoming complacent, Jim?
Okay, so yes, it takes planning, it takes discipline to make something happen. Often, it's very difficult for people to do it onto themselves. And this is where a lot of training comes in,
Okay.
which is good and bad. I think training is great, but I don't like it when a company sends us to a 3 or 4 day training. We go maybe offsite to this training and we get a great new binder and we bring it home. And what happens to that binder? Boom, it goes on our shelf and we almost never look at it again.
Mm-hmm.
And statistics and studies have shown, unless you start using what you've learned right away,
Yeah,
70 to 80% of what you learned is gone
true.
within 7 days. This is why I like coaching, why I became a coach. Because as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
I get people to try things, to do things. And that's the human part of it. We don't know how things are going to really happen until we actually go out and try it. And I like the word experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Often we talk about, we'll try this and see what happens. We'll do a pilot and see if it works. Well, this is all nothing more than experimenting. But the word experiment to me
Mm-hmm.
brings around some constraints around that, some control. When I was in 5th grade, for example, we had to do a science fair experiment with a poster board, right? And a
Mm-hmm.
hypothesis written on
Mm-hmm.
top, the experiment we're going to run. And did that experiment prove or disprove the hypothesis? Well, this is what we need to do for every leadership thing that we try: how we delegate, how we manage, how we manage up, how we communicate. They're all experimental. We're trying to find what works for us.
As a leader, are you getting caught up into the weeds of the day, the mundane things, rather than on the bigger picture items? We're going to take a break and get a word from our partners. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Nicky Mason, and I want to share with you my journey with Noreen Daly in my communication coaching sessions. As I went through the sessions with Noreen, I was able to recognize my strengths in communication. Some things I didn't recognize that I would do, she was able to unearth and allow me to recognize that these are some strengths that I had. I did have some weaknesses which I was challenged to overcome through research, reviewing other public speakers, and being able to sit before a camera and to speak to an audience, an invisible audience. It was fun, and as a coach, she was patient and she gave good feedback, and she was able to give me the insight into communication as to how to best use my skills, my natural communication strengths to be engaging as a speaker. And I would recommend anybody who seeks to become a more competent communicator to enroll in her program. Reach out to her, and I believe you're going to enjoy the journey as much as I did. Thanks.
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors. Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics, or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-876-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Buddy program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at landolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
Let's continue the conversation. I think, though, for whatever reason, over time, people are not as open to doing that in terms of experimenting because they believe they must have the answer. Because they don't have the answer, it seems as if they're not in control.
Yes. So there's two things. One, we often don't like change. Change happens all through our lives, I say. We grew up, we went to school, we might have gone to university, we picked a subject, that's change. We got married, that's change. We had kids, that's change. We got a different job, that's change. What we don't like is being changed. When we pick it ourselves, that's fine. It may be scary, but we're going to go into it. But we don't like to be changed. So when a company says, we're going to do this now, we're going to try do this, people are like, oh, resistant. But what about this? And what about this? And to think of every little case that may have no impact, but we're going to ask about it. I found when we talk about, well, let's take 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever it is, and we're going to experiment and we're going to try and see what happens if we do this. People are less resistant to it because they feel like If it doesn't work, I have a place to go back to.
Yeah.
So the word experiment often means a little softer than change, that I can come back.
Mhm.
But then there is what you said is, well, I have to know the end. It depends how you say it, because that's the hypothesis. The hypothesis is saying, I think if I do X, I'm going to get Y. If I think that if I bring this new feature in this product, I'm going to get more customers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, what now? That's the hypothesis. Now the experiment is, what is the smallest, fastest, cheapest way that I can prove or disprove this hypothesis?
Mhm.
Now, when I talk about vision, I like it big. I like it bold. I want it audacious.
Mhm.
But when we talk about experimenting, it is just the opposite. We want to think small. I don't want any
Yeah.
experiment to last more than 30 days. And if it lasts more than 30 days, then it's something we have to break down a little bit smaller. Often I work with software companies,
Mhm.
right? I think if I bring this feature into this new piece of to this software, I'm going to make more money. So often software companies will build that entire feature. It may take many teams and months of work and cost
Mhm.
millions of dollars, and then we'll get it out. And sometimes we find out what? Gee, it looks great, but nobody really wanted it. So I spent a lot of money.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if we think of it as an experiment, what can I do in 1 month that will prove or disprove this? It changes the way we think.
Mhm.
I may go out and do surveys. I may go out and talk to my customers. I may do a quick mock up and show it to people and say, would you be interested? There's probably a piece of software out there called Dropbox that a lot of people know about, that you
Mhm.
can share files and so on. I'm not sure if it was Box or Dropbox, but how they figured that out,
Mhm.
they ran an experiment where they got people to try it out before software was written. And what was actually happening in the background that people didn't see during this experiment,
Mhm.
they were manually doing things, moving files, making it look pretty, and so on, just so people can get a feel of what's
Okay.
happening
Okay.
and say, yes, this looks good. So they didn't build all that software. They just
Mhm.
kind of a front to make it look like something's happening.
Okay. I don't want us to close out without you telling us. So you said the triple E structure is emerge, elevate, and excel, but you referenced the lead framework, and I want you to cover that before we
Okay.
wrap up this conversation.
So in the lead framework, right, we created our
Mm-hmm.
vision story.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to kind of plan, what are we going to do to make it happen? Well, there's 4 perspectives to this. First is L, lean into your story. And that's
Mm-hmm.
about creating the vision or breaking down that vision into smaller pieces,
Mm-hmm.
making a strategy to make that happen. The second one is E, which is to empower that story. As a leader, you can't do this by yourself. You have to
Mm-hmm.
use your people. So, how do we empower our people in such a
Mm-hmm.
way that they can learn through execution or learn by doing things?
Okay.
Right? Small experiments.
Mm-hmm.
A is to amplify your story. Again, about people, but less about the tasks that we're doing in execution, but about the culture of your organization, of your team. There's the old quote out there about culture eating strategy for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if it's counter to your culture,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't going to happen.
Oh.
So it's knowing your culture, And what are your people? What are your systems and processes for your people?
Mhm.
We know that if we have great interfaces on our computer, on our phone, things work well. But when they're old and clunky, it doesn't.
Mhm.
So if your processes and systems, which are the interface of your employees to your business, are not
Mhm.
good, you're wasting a ton of time and money. The last letter is D, and that's durability for your story. We often call this executive presence. How do you come across to people? How do you show up every day? How do you communicate? What's your brand, your reputation, and what's your life balance? Because if everything's great at work, but not so good at home, it's not worth it. So that's LEAD. Lean into your story, empower your story, amplify your story, and durability. Now, if you take each of those things
Mhm.
and put 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, now you have a grid to put different experiments in. And at the end of each 30 days and the 90 days, what worked, what didn't work, and how am I going to set up my next one?
One final question, Jim. If you had to pick of both the triple E structure and lead framework, if you had to pick, say, one of the letters from either one, and say that if all of what I've said, you get nothing, but here's the one letter and what it means that I think is the most important, what would that be?
The most important thing here is experimenting. Experimenting moves us forward. It helps us get over the imposter syndrome, the fear of failure, and all the other fears that leaders have. Move forward little by little with experiments, and you will be the adaptable, flexible leader that companies are looking for.
Thanks for sharing, Jim.
You're very welcome.
This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly. Until next time.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for